Hello everybody, this is Justin from Justin Plays Games, and today I want to share with you a little something that I've been working towards, haven't completed yet, but I have some useful information that I thought I would share because it's been a fun process. So thanks so much for checking out this video. If you like this channel and you want more videos from Destiny and other games, please make sure you leave some comments, subscribe, maybe leave a like. All those things would be really helpful. And thank you so much for watching the video. What we're doing today is taking a quick look at some strategies and build guides for Warlock Solo Flawless Grasps of Avarice Dungeon in Destiny 2. Big shout out to the Mog House, my buddy. We've been working on this together. He has successfully solo flawless the Grasps of Avarice, and I have not yet done it on my Warlock, but I'm trying to, and I have finally gotten, I think, a good strategy down for the Ogre. So I really wanted to make a video and just share some of my build recommendations and strategies for getting through the Ogre fight in Grasps of Avarice solo and flawless. So first things first, let's hop in and take a quick look at the build. All right, so here's the build that I've been working around for attempting to do the solo flawless Grasps of Avarice. Now I know Void is amazing right now, and Void is great, and I love all my Void builds, but I've just found there's a little bit more safety and a little bit more ad clear potential, controlled ad clear, I should say, with a Shadebinder build for this. So I would suggest checking out the old Shadebinder. And there really is nothing too fancy here. It's pretty standard Shadebinder stuff. So we're going to run Healing Rift, Burst Glide, Phenomenal Blast, and Cold Snap Grenade. That's important because the gloves that we're using will give us an extra Cold Snap. Our aspects are going to be Bleak Watcher and Glacial Harvest. We want Bleak Watcher simply for the turrets. The ice turrets are really invaluable in this fight, especially when it comes to clearing the ads in the different rooms and for freezing the boss and staggering a little bit of the boss's damage to you. And then we want Glacial Harvest, where we're going to be creating shards, stasis shards, every time we freeze a target. So we'll be picking up a lot of stasis shards, and those shards are going to help us with survivability. This fragment is, I think, really key for this build, because the main weapon that we're going to be using in this is going to be Osteo Striga, which is a really powerful exotic kinetic weapon, and there's been a 40% damage buff to exotic kinetic weapons, and on top of that, if we use Whisper of Rending, we're getting an additional damage buff. So this fragment, combined with Osteo Striga, does some serious work in this particular encounter. We want Whisper of Conduction, so the stasis shards track to us and you get some extra resilience and intellect, but honestly you could probably swap this one out if there's something else that you would prefer or you felt better using. So Whisper of Conduction could be swapped, but I'm using it. Whisper of Chains is really important. Reduce damage and 10 recovery when you are near frozen targets, which is going to be often. So that damage reduction is really important because there isn't a whole lot of damage reduction available in the game right now, besides Well of Tenacity, which we could potentially add to this build if we needed it, and I'll talk about that later. There is some Void capability that can kind of be mixed in with this Shadebinder build, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the last fragment is Whisper of Torment. So you gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets, and we want grenade energy because we always want to make sure that we have a turret available to throw. I will say, is just because of my armor and stat rolls and stuff, my discipline is only at 85. So that is a bit of a limiting factor on this particular build. So try to get yours to be 100 if you can. As far as weapons go, Osteo is going to be amazing in here. Because of that Whisper of Rending and because of its damage potential and its AoE potential. I can't tell you how many times I was saved from dying at the crystal depositing the engrams when a bunch of Thrall came through and just were going to destroy me, but I just popped one of them with Osteo and the poison spread and saved me. The energy slot is completely up to you. You can swap this out for whatever you feel you might need. If you want to run double SMGs with a funnel web, do it. If you'd rather do an auto, like one of these auto rifles that has land tank for a little bit of an extra damage reduction, that could be a really good swap as well. Maybe you like a grenade launcher that you can throw in there for some arc damage or you know, soul drink or chain reaction, whatever you need, you can swap that. We aren't really even hardly going to be using this particular weapon in the fight. In the footage you'll see later, I tend to use Under Your Skin. Primarily because of land tank, and I probably will again, but for now I was also testing out Deafening Whisper as a Void potential, but I'll probably go ahead and run the bow. And then I go back and forth on this one, but because Osteo is so strong, I used to use Galahorn in here, but Osteo is so good that I switched over to a Vorpal Reed's Regret. And this is really good in here because the idea behind the build that we're working on here is that you want to have high energy fire and charged with light ready to go when it's time to do DPS on the boss. And if you have both of those things, plus Font of Might, you're going to get a nice little buff on the Reed's Regret damage here when you try to do DPS on the boss. And that DPS really, really does help. And now we'll check out the armor selections and some really important mods that you'll want to definitely try to equip for this strategy. The head is really important. So let's take a quick look in here at what we have. Again, you want to max out your discipline if possible. You want to have all those icy turrets ready to go whenever you need them. Linear fusion rifle ammo finder is really great if you're using a rocket launcher or whatever. You know, make sure you're getting tons of heavy ammo, which you will during this process, in this fight. Kinetic Siphon is really, really key because, as I said, we're doing pretty much everything in this fight with Osteo. And so we're going to be generating tons of orbs of power. And we want to be able to use those orbs of power to give us charged with light so that we can get high energy fire ready to go for the boss DPS phase. So this is important. If you don't have this, you're going to, which is what happened with me, I struggle to get those orbs or those shards or those wells stacked up before DPS on the boss, so then I don't have high energy fire ready for the boss. So like killing the little thralls as you run to where you're going to do DPS on the boss is going to generate some orbs, and you should have this. This should help a lot. And then taking charge. So become charged with light when you pick up the orbs of power that you're creating. On the gloves, we want to do elemental shards. This is just, again, another way for us to collect those stasis, for our stasis shards to count as elemental wells. If we pick up a stasis shard with this mod, we're going to get charged with light times 2. So that's really good. The point here, again, we're kind of covering the same ground, but we want to try to ensure that we always have charged with light on so that we can have high energy fire ready for the boss. Plus with this, we're also going to be benefiting from Font of Might, which we have on another mod down below. And you want to try to have both Font of Might and high energy fire queued up for when you do DPS on the boss. I had an extra slot here, so I threw on the fast ball. And then grenade kickstart, really important. You want to make sure that when you throw those grenades out, when you make those turrets, that you get that grenade back as quickly as possible. So try to have icy gloves. On the body, grenade discipline, right, for warlocks. Thermoshock plating is going to help with the melee damage from the Thrall, as well as the ranged solar cannon damage from the Scorch Cannon guy. And then you definitely want to have void resistance so you can take a little bit less damage from the boss's eye beam that is void. And then high energy fire, the sort of centerpiece of this whole thing, which will, when charged with light, allow us to do extra weapon damage until we kill a monster. So if we're doing weapon damage over and over again on the boss, we're not killing it. And so if we have the charge with light, we're just going to be doing that extra damage over and over again on the boss, which is great. On the boots, another way to become charged with light. So elemental charge, right? So this is where when we pick up one of those stasis shards that we've created, which because we have elemental shards on, count as a well, which matches our subclass. Elemental charge is giving us 2 stacks of charge with light because essentially we're picking up an elemental well that matches Shadebinder subclass, an icy well. So that one's really important too. Insulation's cool. You know, I just threw that on there because I had a spot. You could swap that out. You get a little bit of ability when you pick up those orbs, which we're making a lot of. Fusion rifle scavenger, because I'm using Reed's Regret, and discipline. And then on the bond, pretty basic. Grenade, stuff. Bomber, discipline, Font of Might. A couple of swaps that you could consider in this build is on the feet in the bond. If you wanted, I've tried this before where I've, instead of used elemental charge, I don't need to rely on the stasis wells, because I'm making so many orbs. So what I could do is I could put on Reaping Wellmaker. And then what that's going to allow us to do is create a void elemental well when we use our Healing Rift. And then if we go down and get rid of Font of Might and instead put on Volatile Flow, we're losing a little bit of boss DPS if everything works out correctly, but this build could be really helpful when you get that Void Elemental well. Maybe you need a little crowd control or some ad clearing. You throw out one of these Void, weapons. You get your well, you get your Volatile Flow added to your Void weapon, you shoot your bow, and you apply that Volatile Flow, volatile rounds to all the mobs, and that really helps with that. But we don't really need that DPS ad clear potential that is available there, which is why I tend to stick with maxing out the charged with light. But, it's also fun to sort of mix in some void as needed on this build. The reason we don't need that void ad clearing is because we're going to be using our Shadebinder super every single time we go into a room to collect engrams. That's the key component here. I don't really even use the super on the boss at all. The super is reserved solely for ad clearing in the rooms, and we are going to be reads regretting the boss to do our DPS until maybe the very end. So this is the build I would recommend. I'll put a link to the dim shareable version of this in the info below. But try to make this build if you can, and then I'll take you next into some footage of me doing this run with this build. Okay, so at this point in the fight, as you can see from the boss's health bar, we've already gone through one damage phase, and now I'm sort of at the process of restarting the damage phase. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is take out all the ads and pick up the Scorch Cannon. You'll notice that I have all of my abilities ready to go and full super. So I typically start with the room on the left and fire the Scorch Cannon in there, jump up, and immediately hit my super as I go through the door. Do a little forward slide move there. And then I'm just supering and controlling this room. Very important consideration here is that if you pick up, just so you know, in this dungeon, if you pick up 10 of these Burdened by Riches engrams, you immediately get your super ability back. But if you pick up those 10 engrams while your Shadebinder super, Wrath of Winter, is still going, you will not get your super replenished. So you need to kind of just be careful that you wait until your super is fully depleted to actually pick up those 10 engrams. You'll notice that Striga was the only weapon that I used in there after I froze everything and killed as much as I could with my super. Grabbed as many engrams as I could. I only managed to get 8 on that particular run, but usually I get more like 13 or 14. And then run to the crystal. Hide behind the crystal for a little bit. Take down some of these thralls with Osteo. With the poison AoE is really, really going to help here. That's exactly what you want to do. And bide your time. You know, be a little patient here. You'll be okay. If the boss is sort of just like pummeling you, just wait a second until he turns around. He'll usually go shoot the Scorch Cannon guy for a while. When I get back to the front, I typically throw my ice grenade turret up there with those enemies, and that will freeze them very, very readily. And then I can DPS them down again, just with Osteo. Jump up, grab the damage resist from those shards, grab the whatever's up there ammo-wise, and then go on to the second room, the other room on the other side of the map. So I'll sit here for a moment, maybe run over to this little area for some safety, jump in here. Again, pop your super and start freezing everything. Be careful in this room. It's a little bit harder to avoid getting all the engrams at once. So just hang back in the corner, freeze as much as you can, kill as much as you can, wait for your super to go away. You should have time to pick up all those engrams, no problem. Run through, grab the engrams, try to get as many as you can. Remember, when you hit 10, you will get your super back. Be a little cautious as you exit the room. If your timer on Burdened by Riches is getting a little bit low, there's usually 2 or 3 acolytes out here that you can kill to pick up one of their engrams, which you can see me doing here. Be careful the thrall don't get in the way of your running path. That has happened to me numerous times. Do your best to avoid the boss shooting you with his void beam, because he will rip you apart with that thing. And then get to the crystal. If you need to, pop a rift right here. If you feel like you're in trouble, pop a rift, but also try to save it. You're going to need it later. As soon as DPS gets initiated, you need 24 crystals. I run over to this room. I throw down my ice turret so it starts to freeze the boss, and I put down my healing rift, and I start just regretting him from here. You'll notice on this particular damage phase, I do not have any charged with light. So I'm not getting the benefits of high energy fire, and I also didn't pick up a well, so I'm not getting the benefits of Font of Might. So that was just raw Reed's Regret damage. But I do have the Rending fragment on, so frozen targets take additional damage. So that's why I put that ice turret out there, to try to keep him frozen as much as possible. Be a little careful during the DPS phase there, because you will be taking fire from the Scorch Cannon crew up here when they respawn. And then it's back to the start again, and it's rinse and repeat, so it's the same exact process. You'll notice all I'm really doing is Osteo and Reed's Regret. Taking down ads, picking up ammo, collecting orbs, throwing out ice turrets. It's slow and steady. And I found that this build does a good job of sort of doing the necessary boss DPS so the fight doesn't feel like it's taking an eternity to get through the thing. So here we go again. Back to the top. Jump in, drop the cannon, super, freeze the room, and just start taking down ads. You should be perfectly fine right here. Like, you're not going to get killed by anything doing this part. So take down all these ads. Again, remember to stagger it a bit so that you don't get your 10 engrams right away. Run through, osteo, you know, if you need an extra turret in here, you can throw it down, but usually I don't need that. So running through, grabbing orbs, taking down ads, and then go and deposit. Now there's one other little extra thing you can do at this point, which I'll show you on the last round. I decided to take a little risk towards the end of this fight and try something extra. But again, you'll see it's the exact same process. Run down to the crystal, watch out for the thrall, avoid the beam, wait till all of your engrams are deposited, and then run over to the next side. Ice turret, watch out for the ads, just be aware of your surroundings. Those guys should all be getting frozen. That turret should eventually turn its attention to the boss once you take down that ad set, and that will help stagger him a little bit. Run over, grab your damage resist, grab your scorch cannon, hop down, open the next room. Run over, wait here a second. You'll notice this little like flying forward move I like to do right there, because if you jump just a little bit and then hit your super, you'll kind of glide forward slightly. I just feel like that helps me get into position more accurately, so just a little nuanced thing there, I guess. You'll see I start picking up a couple of engrams here before my super is out, which is fine. And then you just get the rest. You'll get right back up to full super, and now it's time for DPS again. Again, right here, don't rush out. You have 27 seconds or so. You have plenty of time, so maybe wait for the thrall. It's a good spot to collect some orbs. Maybe you want to melee freeze something here to get some shards, or shoot something in the groin with a bow and arrow. And then run to the crystal, deposit, watch out for ads, and get ready for DPS. Also, remember to reload your fusion rifle right here. It's a good time to reload your fusion rifle. I often forget to do that. But run to this little area, well down, rift is going. And again, you see, I don't have any of those damage buffs happening right now. So, okay, so I just picked up an orb. So now I have charged with light, and you'll see the damage numbers go up a little bit more. So there's 61, 58, 58, 61. So I'm getting a little bit higher DPS here on this phase because of that charged with light, high energy fire combo. So again, watch the grenades coming in, watch the scorch cannons. Take your time, and you know, you'll be good. Careful with your grenade toss so it doesn't hit the roof. And right back to the top. It's the same thing over again. It's really not a lot to think about. Once you have this set up, it's pretty straightforward, especially the fact that you don't really need to change weapons very often, except for during boss DPS. Let's go through it one more time. Repetition is the key. I can't tell you how many times my buddy Mog and I have run through this battle. Millions, it seems. So run in, super, right? Take out all this whole... The Shadebinder super is just so good for ad clearing in this room. So take all these guys out. Sometimes the Thrall will come up. If you don't kill them at the beginning, they'll come up and kind of bother you, so just be aware of behind you. Freeze and take down as many of these dudes as you can. Grab the orbs. Get your super back. Run through. Get as many orbs as you can. There'll be 2 or 3 out on the ledge too that you can get as well. So, and then back to the crystal. So back to the crystal. Ads. Poison is so good. Deposit. And get out of there. Back to the other side. Ice turret. Maybe, if you feel like it. I didn't throw it that time. You can see how much damage Osteo does. It's really insane. I kind of paused for a second because I didn't want the Ogre to immediately destroy me. You can grab the Scorch Cannon through the underneath of the ledge sometimes too, all the times too, so remember to do that. Put your rocket in, and then get ready for ad clearing on the second side. So notice my little forward dash move I do in here. Whee! Get that nice freeze on all those guys. Take them all down. Just kind of sit back here. Again, don't collect the orbs too quickly. Just kind of take down the room. Ogre's going to be shooting you, but you should be fine if you're in your super. And then start picking up all the engrams. $13 or $14 is a really good number that you want to aim for. And again, right here, reminder, take your time. Don't rush out like I did right there. I was getting a little antsy at this point. So it's going to be some thrall. Osteo will save your life right here. And then this should be damage again. Reload your fusion. Toss your ice grenade. Run back up to the damage spot. Try to pick up an orb if you can, if there's anything on the way. This is the kind of part that I'm working on, is trying to figure out how I can be more reliably getting charged with light and higher energy fire. So, pro tip here. The Ogre goes a little crazy during this phase. You need to just watch out for him. He will get way more aggressive. He'll come right up to you. I got a little lucky with the fact that he was kind of in a weird place and he couldn't quite hit me. But that's not always what happens. He will get super, super aggressive with you in this phase. If you feel like you're in trouble or he's too close, just bow out and go on to the next. It's a much better idea to reset the whole thing, just keep going than trying to sit there and get one last rocket or one last reads on him. It's not going to help out too much. So I think it's on this phase that I wanted to show you one little extra wrinkly that you can throw into this fight. So let's take a quick look at what happens here. So again, back up to the top. You'll notice this time I don't have any of my abilities except for my melee, so that's kind of an issue. The management of those got a little skewed on that one, but it's okay. I have my super, so we're fine with that. So jump in, drop the cannon right on the ledge. Notice I dropped the cannon right there on the ledge. That's going to be important here in a second. Freeze everything. You can get all the crystals that you need to initiate damage phase in one round of this if you are quick and you're willing to take a little bit of a risk. I was a little disappointed here because I messed up picking up some of those, but because I was a little early on this, oh no, it's not this round. On the next DPS phase, you'll notice I try something a little tricky at the end, but you don't need to come down here and deposit the crystals half and half like this. You can just grab the Scorch Cannon again and go over to the next room and collect all 25, 26 crystals all in one go, but you have to be quick. There have been a couple of times where I was not quick enough and I ended up dying because I couldn't get into the room fast enough. Usually that happens if I forget to take out the Thrall, because they will hit me when I'm trying to aim the Scorch Cannon. And if you don't get that Scorch Cannon off right away to open the door, you're not making it into that room in time. So we'll see that play out here in a moment once we get through this damage phase. But let's just do this damage phase real quick, and then we'll talk about that. So again, just fly in, super, orbs, or engrams, and then go deposit DPS. So you'll notice here too that I still like hardly on any of these damage phases, I think it was just only one of them, I had high energy fire even working. Notice right there too, I got a little hairy, I had to retreat. I was a little scared that I was going to die right there. I tend to die at this last phase because it gets a little risky, because he just seems to do a little more damage. So So that's the part of this build that I'm working on, is trying to make sure I have that high energy fire for just a little extra DPS during those phases. So here we are, the last damage phase basically, and I was like, I'll just try this. So what we're gonna want to do here to do double engrams is grab the Scorch Cannon, beware the Thrall, right? Jump up, drop the Scorch Cannon kind of right here. Super. The whole room is, and this is where you got to be a little quick. So, you know, I've said this whole video that you want to sort of stagger the collection of these. You're going to need to do it a little faster this time. You don't want to wait too long or the Scorch Cannon will go away and then you'll have to just, you know, start from the top. So run through, grab these engrams as quickly as possible. Get your super back. And it's okay if you don't get all of them. You just need to have, you know, 11 or 12 and that's fine. And then grab the Scorch Cannon again. Sometimes it's going to disappear if you're not quite fast enough, but this time it didn't. So I said, oh, go for it. And then you got to run down and immediately open this next room because those incoming thralls will mess you up. And if you miss that Scorch Cannon room opening shot, it's over. So now notice our timer. The cooldown here on Burdened by Riches was almost down to 5 or 6 seconds. So you got to be careful about that. That's what's going to mess you up. That's what's killed me several times, doing it this way with the double engrams, which you don't need to do. It's just to make it faster. But at this point, I was like, yeah, we're at the end. Let's go for it. It'll be good for the video. So it worked out this time, but it doesn't always work out. So, you know, use at your own risk. I noticed that I do have a charged with light now, so but I'm going to lose that here if I kill one of these thralls. So that's just kind of the way it goes. But maybe they drop an orb and I get it back, especially since I was not running the one mod that we talked about earlier on this build. So then turret, well, reeds, and just go to town. And again, I don't have the charge with light, so that's the part of this. Oh, there we go. I just picked up an orb, so now I'm doing a little more damage there. And then I was like, let's do it. Super him to death. So I did pop my super here at the end here because I figured this would probably be the last round. It was close though. It was close. And that's how you do it. So I'm still working on soloing the rest of this dungeon, but I think I have a pretty good grasp, pun intended, on the ogre fight. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please check out the channel, leave some comments. I'd love your thoughts and feedback, and subscribe if you want. We do some cool stuff here. Thank you so much. Catch you next time.